Hey, my name is Roman. I'm working on my bachelor's degree in kinesiology and with an A in chemistry and in neuroscience. Today I'm telling you about the 5 things you have in common with your motorcycle. Kind of like that one, right there. So it's no secret we all sweat, right? I'm sure all of you at home have broken a sweat at least once or twice. Not only are there proteins, ammonia, urea, and of course salt in our sweat, right? Which play a key role in the homeostasis of our body, but there's also that one key liquid of life, water. Now, why is this important? And most of all, how exactly does water help us cool down on a hot day? Now let's start from the top. Water, as we know, is made up of 2 covalent bonds. The 2 hydrogen atoms are covalently bonded to the oxygen. This creates partial charges in the water molecule itself. The hydrogens carry a slight positive charge and the oxygens carry a slight negative charge. Now, when other water molecules interact with each other, they form hydrogen bonds. One molecule's hydrogen bonds to the other's oxygen, which is indeed a very strong force, but not necessarily strong enough to overpower the covalent bonds within the water molecule itself. That magic hydrogen bond is not only the key to why we sweat, but kind of the key to why there's life on this planet. So no matter how high I turn up the heat on this stove, the water and the pot itself will always be at 100 degrees Celsius. Why? It's because of those hydrogen bonds. It takes all of this energy from the fire for there to be enough spontaneous movement within the water molecules for them to shoot up and turn into a gas. And keep in mind, the act of phase changing is an endothermic process, which means it pulls the heat from the fire, from the metal stove, to change from a liquid to a gas. Now, I want you to watch how hot this pot gets once there's completely no water. Alright, so we just passed boiling point. We're well above 100 degrees Celsius, and this is why heat stroke is so dangerous. Once your body is devoid of water, there is nothing stopping it from overheating. Where have I heard that term before? Overheating. So this is my, and most likely your, bike's radiator. I'm sure most of you notice, most water-cooled, high-performance or large displacement motorcycles come with a gaping mouth of a front end, much akin to a whale shark inhaling plankton in the ocean. So let's ask the age-old question, why? So just like the sweat from our bodies, the coolants we put in our engines are derived from water. Now you may be asking the question, if they're both from water and engines get burning hot, how come the water doesn't just evaporate or explode a pipe? The thing is, the coolants we put in our bikes aren't just made of water. The antifreeze used in vehicles is added in a 50-50 ratio to distilled water. Water, being a polar molecule, is a good solute for other liquids, meaning that it easily dissolves and interacts with other polar molecules. Now, when the water molecules interact with the main ingredient of the coolant, ethylene glycol, this creates even more opportunities for hydrogen bonding to occur, making what once required 100 degrees Celsius to separate those hydrogen bonds within each water molecule can now reach temperatures of up to 126 degrees Celsius just by adding an extra hydrogen bond and a heavier compound. It's pretty crazy. So while you need to be rehydrating to replace the water you lost after an intense workout or cardio session, the bike sends the coolant to the radiator to then be cooled by the fresh air from outside, and it gets sent back through the system to do it one more time. Or many, many times. Yeah, hydrogen bonding. Who would have thought? Scientists. Scientists think of everything. One of the most absolute overlooked aspects that I see from common bike reviewers these days is compression ratio. So let's ask the question, what is compression ratio and why is it important? At first glance, compression ratio is an easy way of telling you how performance-driven an engine is. You can get this from really the name itself. So let's say an engine has a ratio of 9:1. When the cylinder reaches the top of the engine and has fully compressed the air and gas into this little tiny space, we call that little space the 1, what goes on the right of the ratio. And then, when we look at the space from the pistons at the very bottom of the engine, we see just how many of those 1 spaces fit inside of it. So, this engine with a 9:1 compression ratio pushes the air and gas mixture into a place 9 times smaller than where it came from, thus creating a very powerful explosion when ignited. And the larger the ratio, the more tight the air and fuel molecules are to each other, thus creating more performance and heat energy, and inevitably more wear and tear on the engine. And what makes man and machine so similar is just how compression ratio tells us how effective the engine is. We have something called stroke volume, which does the exact same thing in the human body. Stroke volume is what you get when you subtract the amount of blood the ventricles hold when relaxed versus the amount of blood left over after the ventricles have fully contracted. So let's say one of your ventricles can hold 70 milliliters of blood when fully relaxed, and after it's contracted for whatever reason, there's 5 milliliters of blood left over. That means your heart successfully pumped out 65 milliliters of blood in that contraction. So the more blood you can fit into a space that gets effectively pushed out means the more blood that gets circulated throughout the body. And for an engine, that means giving you more power. Good stuff. So where high performance bikes and cars typically have a more aggressive idle, high performance people like endurance runners or bike racers typically have a lower resting heart rate when compared to people who live a more sedentary lifestyle. That means with an increase in cardio activity throughout the week and a healthy lifestyle, you can turn your 7-to-1 tractor heart into a 14-to-1 high-octane MotoGP racing machine. Let's get it. All of us riders in the dirt and adventure community regularly put our bikes in harm's way and falling onto rocks, trees, and logs, and if you're really unfortunate, the street. But to circumvent this, we've incorporated what's known as crash bars or engine guards to not only protect our beautiful plastics, but the life of our bike, the engine. So let's say I'm not in my garage, but in fact the west coast of South Africa. And while this is a pure hypothetical and I would never ever drop my bike, I've dropped my bike. So if I didn't have my engine guards, there is a very, very likely chance this boulder here could do some serious damage to not only the bike, but possibly even crack my engine, which is why people have incorporated such things as bolt-on crash protection in the front as well as the rear. Almost like an exoskeleton. That word, exo. As I'm sure you all know, the bones protect many vital parts of our body, but the one I want to talk about today is the cage. No, not that cage. The other cage. The human body has 24 ribs in total, meaning there's 12 on each side, and the last two pairs are known as floating ribs. Random thing. I used to work at a physical therapy clinic, and I would examine the x-rays of people, and sometimes, it was rare, but there would be people who had an extra pair of ribs and didn't even know it. And when I told them, they didn't care. So just like your bike, your ribs are protecting some of the most vital organs in your body. And instead of having them be easily poked at, your ribs are not only materially strong, but structurally sound. So let's say the left side of the bike is impacted. That energy is then transferred to the right side through the connection with the rear fender and all the way back to where it's bolted onto the frame of the bike. That design can be seen throughout every human being on this planet. When the rib cage is struck, the energy is transferred to not just one side, but since 20 of the ribs are connected to the sternum, that energy is then shared and dispersed to the other side of the body, where it can be met at its connection to the dense vertebrae, completing the cycle and dispersing the energy away from the vital organs. Hey, but don't go around testing that. Let the ribs do their job when they need to. Hey, it's number 4, we're almost done. And this is probably the most crucial one of all 5, to be honest. So let's get started. So your spinal cord ends between L1 and L2 of your lower back. It goes all the way up to the base of your skull, where it then enters your skull as the brainstem connected to the brain. These two, the spinal cord and the brain, make up your central nervous system. So all the other neurons in your body that don't make up your brain and spinal cord, like the ones in your eyes, your tongue, arms, and legs, are known as the peripheral nervous system. Like roots from a tree, these peripheral nerves extend from the spinal cord and have specific functions and innervate at specific locations, which give us opportunities for sensory functions, as in feeling, or motor functions, as in moving. So you guys know where this is going. Just like you, your bike has the exact same setup. Sort of. So in motorcycles and cars, the main electrical pathway is known as the wiring harness, and actually is pretty similar to our own nervous system. It's made up of thick wires typically running along the frame of the bike that have supplementary wires going to power the lights, the turn signals, ABS sensors, and in modern bikes, even suspension and lean angle sensors. That's pretty crazy. So I gotta make this clear. While they are similar in theory, human neuroanatomy is very complex. And unlike our two-wheeled friends here, we can't just go around replacing wires. So any damage done to the central nervous tissue in our brain or spinal cord is near impossible to regrow, which is unlike our peripheral nerves, which we can, injure and recover from. Any damage to the central nervous system is scarred off, meaning that it's not coming back, which is why it is so important to always wear protective gear like your helmets and or padded motorcycle clothing to minimize any impact. Minimize. You know what I mean. Wear your gear. Quit playing. I'm being for real. Do it. And last but not least, number 5. Alright, so number 1, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because all the revenue from this video and all my videos goes towards charities every month. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Go and subscribe. There's a puppy here. You can't not subscribe. Subscribe. It goes for a good cause. Peace. Bye guys. I'll see you later. Bye guys. I love you. See ya. So, going through school, combining my two passions of engineering and medicine really helped me understand high concept topics. So trust me, I've come up with a lot more of these. So, one MotoGP racing machine. Think about this one because you go to